Alright, picture Boston in February. Not postcard Boston, real Boston. Wind cutting through your coat, streets are wet and cold, your fingers are numb. People are moving fast, and they're not stopping on the street because if they stop, it hurts because it's so cold. Boston isn't calm in the winter of 1770, and it hasn't been calm for a while. The town is broke. Work is hard to come by, food costs too much, and redcoats are everywhere. You've got muskets and bayonets and boots on doorsteps, and they're only there to remind you who's allowed to push who around. They're not there protecting you. Down on the docks, customs men are crawling all over everything. They're seizing cargo, fining merchants, turning your neighbors into informants. One accusation, one bad interaction, and your livelihood is gone. By now, everybody knows somebody who got pinched. So the town does the one thing they can do. They stop buying British goods. No imports, no tea, no clothes, no luxuries. If it comes off a British ship, it just sits there and rots. That's the boycott. It's not some abstract protest. It's regular people choosing to go without so they don't get walked all over. And it only works if everyone holds the line. So when someone keeps selling British goods, when they take the money anyway, it's not just business anymore. It's telling everyone else that their sacrifice doesn't matter. And that's the kind of place Boston is right now. It's cold, it's crowded, and it's angry. And the kid in this story, Christopher Seider, he's not living some soft, nice childhood. His family's down on Frog Lane near the Commons, across from the Liberty Tree. But by 1770, he's been booted out of the house. He's living in the house of a rich widow, working as a servant. So he's a 10-year-old kid, but he's also someone's worker. He sleeps under someone else's roof, wakes up to chores, and runs errands in the cold. He's surrounded by money that's not his, in rooms that he doesn't own. And he's not a stupid kid. He's pretty bright. He reads. He carries around stories in his pocket. They're hero stories. Stories of generals and glory. Big moments of big courage. The kind of stories that make a little boy stand up just a little bit straighter. Now it's Thursday, February 22nd. It's market day. Christopher's out of school. The streets are packed with people. There's a shop down the road still selling British imports, and everybody knows it's not quiet. They plant a big ugly sign out front of his shop, and it's basically screaming, "Don't buy from this guy!" Some accounts even say it had a big wooden head on it with a bunch of caricatures pointing right at the door. The sign isn't subtle, and it's sure as shit not polite. The street is already getting loud with commotion around the sign. Then Ebenezer Richardson shows up. Boston's had a name for this guy for years. He's called the Informer. He's a customs man, he's a snitch, and he's a helper to the crown. He's the kind of man that nobody invites anywhere. John Adams would later say, and I quote, "If there was even a color of justice in the public opinion, he was the most abandoned wretch in America. Adultery, incest, perjury were reputed to be his ordinary crimes. His life would exhibit an atrocious volume." This guy's not respected by patriots, and he sees the sign, and he just can't walk past it. So he starts trying to get people to smash it. First he asked another British guy to run his wagon over it and crush it, and then he asks a guy selling charcoal to break it up, and everybody says no, because nobody wants to touch it. So Richardson gets desperate, and takes the horse and the cart that's just right there on the street, and rams into the sign himself. And as soon as that happens, stuff starts flying. They're throwing sticks and chunks of dirt and ice and whatever they can get their hands on. Well, Richardson starts making his way back for the house, and the whole time he's hollering, "Perjury, perjury," at the patriots that had put this sign up. And as he's leaving, he threatens them, and they threaten him, and he stops in the street for a verbal confrontation. And it just gets worse because they keep arguing, and he keeps threatening them, and they keep threatening him, and they're yelling at him, and he's screaming back at them. And right after that's when one witness says they heard Richardson tell him if they keep following him to his house, he's gonna make it too hot for them. Somebody pipes up in the crowd and calls him a damn son of a bitch, and that they were gonna cut his heart out. As Richardson is making his way back to his house, the lieutenant governor catches wind of all this commotion and orders the sheriff to go down there and put a stop to it. And the sheriff won't go. Not because he's lazy, but because he doesn't want to get caught up in the middle of all this. And he doesn't want to get caught in the middle of all this because it's not safe. And none of the other justices around are going to go down there and break it up because they know it's not safe and they don't want to get in the middle of all of it. That's how far gone it is. Nobody will stop it. There's no authority on the streets anymore, and there's just people down there. And that's where Christopher is. He's out in front of Richardson's house with the rest of the boys. And the truth is, we don't get a clean story of exactly what happened. Some witnesses say that he didn't throw anything and he was just observing. Other witnesses say he was crouching like he was throwing stones and picking them off the ground. We don't know. The only thing we know for sure is that he was there and he was very close to it. And even if he was throwing stones, he's a 10-year-old boy. That sounds about right. Well, inside the house, the windows are getting smashed out hard enough that they're tearing the lead and the frames out of the windows. Inside Richardson's house is a sailor named George Wilmot. The crowd's pushing at the doors. Richardson sticks his gun out of the broken window and just clicks and drops the hammer, just almost like a warning, snapping the gun at him to let him know, hey, back up. And then he fires for real. He fires his musket, loaded with birdshot. But it's not like modern shot. It's lead melted and slowly poured into liquid water so it forms these weird, sharp teardrop shapes. And then it's packed down the barrel of a smoothbore musket like gravel. When he pulls the trigger, the charge spreads almost immediately, and Christopher's close. Close enough that 11 pieces of lead strike his chest and belly. His right hand is shredded too, almost like he put his arm up, bracing for the shot when he saw the gun barrel poke out of the window. Well, he doesn't die on the street, but he collapses on it. The crowd surges forward and somebody grabs him, hauls him out of the road and into a nearby house. There's blood everywhere, and Christopher is quickly going into shock. And now the whole street goes from angry to just straight up murderous. A bell starts ringing and people swarm the house front and back. They immediately break through the doors and drag Richardson and Wilmot out of the house. Their first thought is to hang Richardson right there. They get the rope and they find a good signpost. And then one guy, talks the whole angry mob out of hanging him right there. Because even a mob knows that after you cross a certain line, some things can't be undone. So they start dragging these guys through the street, and the whole time they're being spit on and cussed at and punched the whole way down the street. And the entire time, Christopher's not dead. They haul Richardson before the judges to what would basically be a courthouse. And there's 1,000 people outside watching. And that's when Richardson gets locked in jail. And nearby, in a cold house, there's 3 surgeons crowded around a 10-year-old boy. And they don't bullshit it. They call it like it is. It's fatal. Christopher's not going to live. Priests show up and pray with him. And then his parents show up and visit with him. And the newspapers would say, the firmness of mind he showed when he first saw his parents, and while he underwent the great distress of bodily pain, and with which he met the King of Terrors. So, basically he's shot to pieces, he's going in and out of shock, and when his parents come in to visit, he still doesn't fall apart. He still recognizes them, and they still get to say goodbye. Christopher Seider dies that night, right around 9 p.m., just days shy of his 11th birthday. But the city of Boston won't let it go away quiet. They turned the whole funeral into a statement. There's roughly 2,000 people in attendance, which is 13% of Boston's total population at the time. And they carved 2 lines of Latin into the boy's coffin, one at his head and one at his feet. At his head, the translation reads, "The serpents in the grass." And at his feet, "Innocence is safe nowhere." They march past the Liberty Tree, where signs are posted up reading, "Thou shalt take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer. He shall surely be put to death. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not pass unpunished." The newspapers light up. They're calling Richardson a murderer. Numerous times they call him infamous. They're squeezing every ounce of anger out of a dead child. Because a dead kid changes things. And everyone knows it. That's kind of where this story stops being about one dead kid. Because Boston didn't just mourn him. They used him. They turned his funeral into a demonstration. A warning. A recruitment poster made out of blood. John Adams was there and he watched it. And what he had to say about it ought to turn your stomach a little bit. There were many more lives to spend if wanted in the service of their country. That's a man realizing that the mood in that town had crossed a line. It's hardening. Adams went on to say it showed, "The ardor of the people is not to be quelled by the slaughter of one child." Which basically just means, if you thought killing one kid was going to calm Boston down, you didn't understand Boston. Because it did just the opposite. Because all of this happens 2 weeks before the Boston Massacre. So if those soldiers don't fire on March 5th, then February 22nd would have been the day everybody considered the bloodshed started. Christopher Seider didn't just die. He was a match. and the city of Boston was already soaked in powder. People always like to talk about the revolution like it was all speeches and uniforms. But sometimes it was just a cold street, a gun poked through a broken window, and a kid who had the day off school. That's the story. It's not clean, and it's not noble at all.